Mic Drop Moments is sponsored by Grow Radio. Want to launch your own podcast? Grow Radio are here to help. Grow Radio has launched and supported countless podcasts, and they'd love to do the same for you. Just hit record and they'll handle the rest. No editing stress, no technical faff, just a great podcast released when you want. Need a little extra support? Grow Radio's workshops and courses make getting started easy. Let's bring your podcast to life. Message Grow Radio on social media or reach out to Gary Jones, the founder of Grow Radio. Let's make this happen. Welcome to Mic Drop Moments, and today I'm chatting with Hetal Trivedi, and I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, Hetal, because nobody knows what you do better than you.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Hetal. I am the founder of the Beautiful Moments Photography Services, which is also now providing visual, like a complete package of visual branding services for female-led businesses who are in the health, wellness, and beauty industry specifically. So that's where I am.
Niched right down. I like that. We're going to come back to this and what you're doing now in a bit. But what I want to do is I want to dig right back. Look at your backstory, as it were, because I love the way that you've booked the trend in your family and the expectations, and you're following your passion, your purpose. So take us right back and take us back through your journey.
Thank you, Sandra, for this opportunity, actually. So if I'll start off by saying that I am the black sheep in the household, and I've been happy enough to say that. Everyone in the family has a job to go to, and a job for life was what was the motto when I was growing up. So having career changes or even like thinking outside the box was not something that any one of us is familiar with. So my journey started back in India. I was born and raised there. My father worked for Western Railways there, so he got transferred quite a lot. So I never had a steady education. I was moving every 2 years. So I didn't have a group of friends, like steady group of friends to rely on or anything. It was always rebuilding. And in that process, in India, a lot of education is through private schools. So my dad, pretty much, we are two sisters, and at one point, my dad's 1/3 salary went into our education. So those were tough days because we all the focus was always on education. And then the reason for that being that I wanted to be the son in the household, and we are two daughters, and I wanted to give something back to my parents because I felt like the sacrifice that they made was enormous in order to raise us and get us where they were. So for me, in those days, despite of being a creative at heart, we couldn't afford to have a camera. So we would borrow cameras from other people for Diwali and other special occasions. And I would get the last 3 pictures in that 36 film roll to just go wild. And I would literally be taking pictures of my siblings, cousins, and everybody. That was my moment. But photography as a career was not really advocated back in the day in 1990s when I was coming out of education. So in order to give something back, I actually trained as a dietitian in India, and I worked there. I did a lot of research. My research was published in journals, and I met my husband. And that's how he's a medic. We met in a hospital there. I fell in love and we came, and that was it. I was in UK in 2005. So it's been 20 years. I couldn't practice dietetics because in those days back in the UK, there were not enough awareness around education. I think UK national academic recognition wasn't able to recognize my qualifications at par. So just to give a bit of a context around it, in India, we do a year 12 and we go to uni. Over here, we have a year 13. And so they didn't, I got a letter saying, I haven't completed my A levels. And I was like, I can't because there's no way, like no year 13 back there. So it was those sort of things. And we didn't have emails. So everything was written and communicated. So it took a long time. In any case, I worked voluntarily over here as a dietitian, unpaid. But it came a point where I was like, I don't want to continue doing voluntary work. So I then decided to become a British graduate and to retrain as a teacher. So I did maths specialism and I then worked in schools as a teacher. Photography was nowhere in the picture. I followed the path that everybody told me, Everyone worked for a job and I did a job. And it was actually a completely, utterly accidental discovery. I was on mat leave in 2016 with my youngest, and my husband gifted me a DSLR. Now, it was one of those first DSLR, first camera that I ever owned. And I felt like something in me sparked, like there was a spark I felt. I was taking pictures of my newborn baby everywhere, and it was nice. But I felt I wasn't using the camera to its utmost potential because I was always on auto mode. So whilst on mat leave, I asked my husband, is it like, can I do like a short course just so somebody could teach me how to use this camera? And he said, yeah, that's fine. And on mat leave, those Thursdays became my, honestly, it was blissful, like peace. I started pursuing digital photography. I did loads of courses, and I never felt as alive as I was until the moment when I was holding my camera and going forward with that. And that's how my journey began in photography. And even after the mat leave, I went back to work. I carried on. I would do workshops, weekend workshops in London, did architectural photography, did travel photography. So we would take specific trips like Paris, Venice, all those were taken with the intention of actually me spending a whole day with a photographer guiding me and taking pictures because it just filled my cup and fueled me.
Yes.
So that's where I was. And yeah, and then I think COVID happened. We all had our own journeys through COVID. For me, I had long COVID for a very, very long time, so I really struggled. And I felt like I was living on autopilot. And the only thing that was keeping me alive was the camera. So it was, and then school situations changed. We had a lot of family issues in terms of my husband being pulled. He's a medic, so he was pulled more at the hospital. He was more there than he was at home. I was a teacher, two children, key worker situation. We really struggled. We didn't have family support back here. So I decided to go part-time, and then political things, environment changed at school because I was a part-time teacher, was very experienced. And I think I'd reached a point where I was massively depressed just with the life. So I did go through a stage of depression. I had a massive panic attack in front of a class of 30 children, and I didn't knew it was a panic attack. And that is where I think my body started saying as well that enough is enough kind of stuff with the stress from work, school.
And I think sometimes our body tells us, doesn't it? I mean, you'll know this being coming from a medical background. Our body gives us those signals, gives us those warnings, and there comes a point in time where you just say, I've got to stop or I'm not going to get through this.
Yeah, yeah, and totally. And that was the point for me. That was the turning point because I was like, I'm doing this, but whom am I doing this for if I'm not getting the joy of it? And in those really dark days, when I did decide to leave my job, my husband actually, at the back burner, renewed my entire kit. So I had a 2016 DSLR. He got me the latest camera, which was mirrorless at that time. And he then gifted me on that Christmas, and he was like, I think your heart lies here. And it was just a signal that probably I needed, a push that I needed. But I then decided to start my own business. And so January, New Year, 1st of January 2023, here I am. Okay, I'm gonna do my photography, but not as a side hustle. I'm actually gonna make it my passion, like basically make my passion as my business. And that's
How lovely that your husband was the catalyst for this, buying you that first camera. He obviously saw something in you, but then again, upgrading all your equipment, I'm not going to say um, allowing you to do those courses. He facilitated, because when you've got a new baby, it is hard. It does mean that the other half's got to do the babysitting and things like that when you've got no support around you. And the fact that he's been totally on board with this to support you. How has the family been about this? Because you've veered, as you said, you were the black sheep of the family. How have they reacted to this change and you starting your own business?
I think initially everyone was like, it's a hobby. It can't be a business. Photography is a hobby. And my parents, my husband's parents, were like, how are you going to, nobody's going to pay you. Like, where are you going to get your paycheck from? And so I was like, no, people do pay. And then they initially assumed that I'm going to do maternity and baby just because that's female Like as a female, that's what you do, family photography or event birthday parties and those sort of things. And I said, no, I'm not even doing that. So then they were really, really puzzled, like, what? You're not even doing what photographers do. So what are you doing? So for them, the world of business branding was extremely new. And then came the point that businesses don't have money. Why are they going to pay you? So it was lots and lots of conversations, which did take quite a time. And they still say, I mean, there are moments, I mean, they've come to acceptance and they now reflect back upon my journey and now call me inspirational and trendsetter. But I know how the conversations were in those early days because
Yeah.
I was choosing instability over stability, which is what the older generation were always told to follow. So
Yes.
they just couldn't understand why I was choosing that, like why I wasn't going back to school and applying to another school for a job. So
Yes.
yeah.
It was all about the professions, though. It was the same with me. When I was young, it was doctor, teacher, lawyer. They were the professions. And if you didn't meet the grade, you got married and had children, and you became a wife. And I was trained to be a wife. It was those sorts of things. And times have changed now, and you stepping out and being the one that says, no, I'm going to do this, which is why it's so important to ignore your friends and family when you are going into business, because they all try and talk you down. My mother used to say to me, Sandra, don't worry, you can always get a proper job.
Yes. I've got exactly the same. Get a proper job. Like, why are you trying to make life more difficult for you? That's what they said. And I said, but I know something in me kept telling me that this is right. This is right for me.
And it's allowing you to follow your passion and your purpose. And I think so many people go to work every day, as you probably did as a teacher. And I'm not degrading the teaching profession. My son and his wife are both teachers, but it's an expectation. You've
Yeah.
gone into this profession, it's a job for life, you have to fulfill it, there's no other way. But there is now, I think, with more women going into entrepreneurship, it's giving us those role models that we can say, well, actually, I can do this, I can follow my passion, I don't have to stay where I am. And that was a brave choice for you to make.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no, I think I'll definitely give an anecdote here. The day my husband was the first person to know that I'm going to resign from my job. And when I was having that conversation, I said to him, I don't know what I'm going to do. I genuinely don't know because at that point, photography, yes, fueled me. I knew it, but I wasn't sure. I asked him, I said, look, at any given point in time, sometimes you have to take that jump, that leap of faith. I'm going to do that. If you can be the log in the water for me to just hold on for a little bit till I learn how to swim, just be there. Like I'm not asking anything. And he said, "Yep, that's fine. I'll be your log." So
Oh, I love that. I've never heard that expression before. What a wonderful way to look at it. And I'm sure he's more than a log. Um, but it's a wonderful analogy, because when you do jump off, you do need that support around you. Let's just go back to when you were teaching, that recognition point when you realized that you were going down a spiral. You said you were suffering from depression. What was your motivator to because you basically had to dig yourself out of that,
yeah,
a recognition within you that something wasn't right, but
yeah.
also a recognition that you had to do something about it, because you could have very easily said, that's it, I'm just giving up, and you didn't. So what was your motivator?
So my mum in the perimenopausal period was a carer for my grandparents, both my grandparents. And my grandma especially was bedridden, and my mum had to fulfill the role of a carer to the point she was predominantly being there 24/7. She lost a lot of, like, she had, because of that, her mental health deteriorated quite a lot, and she was on antidepressant medications. And I kind of have seen her journey through it, and I felt like I lost my mum to those medications because after a while that became her norm.
Mm.
Um, and I was put on antidepressants just because of that. And I didn't want to be her. I didn't want to be her. Bless her. I love my mum to bits. And I think she lost her identity in being a wife, in being a mum, and then being a carer. So she could never live her life. Like she's very creative, but she couldn't. And I always wanted to have my own identity. I didn't want to be stuck to the title of, oh, she's so and so's wife or she's so and so's mum. And then having those antidepressant medications was another thing that made me realize I unwillingly followed my mum's path. And so I wanted to come out. I didn't want to be on medications. Doctors had told me to continue for 3 months. I was on it for 4 weeks. That's it. I was not having it. I was fighting every single day. I gave up my medications way before the doctors advised, and I have been free from them. I've only taken them for 4 weeks. And just that, if the camera is giving me, I would go out. I would find opportunities to go out. I would edit. I would edit even my family photos because that was filling my cup. I knew that
Yeah,
is what is helping. So I was spending more and more time with those efforts, like putting more efforts there. And that was probably why I think my husband saw me do that because he could see I was not happy in the current situation, the way things were. But I was spending more and more time with either editing pictures, going out with the camera in a park, even if it was a park. But it also, I mean, it basically the camera helped me see all the tiny little things that go unnoticed. So I'll
yeah,
give you an example. I went to lavender fields, Cotswold lavender. Everybody puts pictures of the lavender. And when I went there for the first time, I saw a beautiful poppy field, which is right next to it. I didn't even knew that existed. So I actually clicked more pictures of that poppy field and then the lavender fields. So for me, that became like, oh gosh, it's making me see all these unnoticed beauty that are completely not noticeable in a day-to-day basis. So I started finding beauty everywhere, and that started
yeah.
filling my cup again.
That's a wonderful way to look at it because as a camera, a photographer, when you're looking through the eye of a lens, you are noticing those small details because you want to get the background right, you want to get the setting right. You probably see things that just we don't see the detail. I started to notice more during the pandemic when I was doing my daily walks without a phone. I was starting to notice the detail, the sounds, more things. But you in your specialism will notice things I don't. And I've had various photographers work with me on my branding, and each one will say something, and I think, oh, I didn't even notice that. And it's part of the role that you perform. I just want, I mean, we could chat all day and we just don't have the time. So I just want to ask you one thing. You said the expectation of you in your family, the traditions were all on education. That obviously education is key, education is important. How are you now approaching that as a mom?
I'm very different. And I'm glad you asked that because my son's coming into GCSEs next year, and he has always been quite academic as a kid. But my younger, who's going to do 11 plus next year, so I've got two big exams coming up. He is more into graphics and designing. Like he makes his own comic books and stuff like that. He's got Head Teachers Award for it. So he's very creative. And I have said to him that he can pursue his own business. Both children can do it. You don't have to become a doctor like their dad. You don't have to follow anybody's footsteps. You can make your own path. And I've been a complete advocate to the point where the highlight was last week when I finished a shoot. I get my kids involved in my shoots, so they make help me make props. So for the shoots, and my youngest said, "Mummy, when I grow up, maybe I can take over your business and I can be a part of it, and maybe we can do the business together." And honestly, Sandra, that was like I've achieved what I wanted to because for my children, it's not just education. They can go to the route of entrepreneurship or anything that they want to do or they are passionate about.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I always ask my guests to leave the audience with a top tip, piece of advice. I call it your mic drop moment. What would yours be?
I think do it. Whatever you want to do it anyway. It's always worth having a go than thinking, I wish I had done it. So
Yeah,
whatever it is. in your life.
Great piece of advice, because we can't turn the clock back and we don't want to live on regret. So try those things, do those things. Great piece of advice there. Today, I've been chatting with Hetal Trivedi from The Beautiful Moments. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Thanks, everyone.